Okay, welcome to the first Thursday Refuge Recovery World Services offering. Welcome to anybody that's here for the first time or tuning in on the podcast for the first time. This is not a Refuge Recovery meeting. This is different than the peer-led meetings. This is the once a month where I lead a topic and a meditation and maybe even do some Q&A if desired. Start with a 20-minute meditation, and then I'll introduce a topic and maybe have some time for discussion, participation. So find a way to sit for meditation. We'll begin by sitting and adjust your posture. And settle in. It's always useful to begin a meditation by establishing the intention for the sitting, reminding yourself that this is a practice to deepen wisdom, to deepen recovery. And to take a moment to soften any unnecessary tension in the body. And then establishing present time awareness, mindfulness. In the present, we experience physical sensation, emotion, thoughts, sounds, smell, taste, images. And mindfulness is awareness, and we can direct our awareness. So we begin by directing our awareness to the sensation of the breath, letting everything else be in the background. Breathing in, know that you're breathing in, feel the sensations that each breath creates. Disengage from the thinking mind, directing our awareness, our attention to the sensations created by each breath. Breathing out, know that you're breathing out. Letting go of the identification with the thinking mind, the planning, the remembering. Bringing our mind fully into the present time experience of sitting, breathing. Of course, the attention gets drawn back into thinking. So much of the initial instruction is learning to disengage from what the mind is thinking about and come back to what the body is feeling. This is a very important intervention, meditative intervention. Being able to disengage, to ignore discursive thought, strong emotion, let it be in the background. Come back to the physical, back to the breath as the anchor of the attention. Not stopping our minds, not stopping our emotions, just letting them be in the background, disengaging. Not giving the mind our full attention, giving the body, breathing, our full attention. If you're new to this meditation or to recovery, continue using the breath. But the instructions from the Buddha on mindfulness continue and inviting us to explore our whole being rather than ignoring the sense doors or the thoughts and emotions, to include them in present time, non-judgmental kind awareness. Focusing on the process, the impermanent nature of everything that we experience. Just as the breath comes and goes, thoughts arise and pass through awareness. Sounds come and go. As we pay attention to what's happening moment to moment, we investigate the feeling tone, the second foundation of mindfulness, how we perceive what we're hearing or thinking or feeling as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. The first part of the meditation instruction is about tuning into what's happening. And the second part is tuning into how it feels. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Each sound, each thought, each smell, each taste is experienced. Without mindfulness, unless it's intense, we're often not even aware of what we're feeling. And this is inviting us to become more and more aware, more and more awake to what is pleasant, what is unpleasant, and how we are relating to those pleasant feelings or those unpleasant, painful thoughts, emotions, sensations. When we identify something pleasant happening in the heart, the mind, or the body, the practice is to allow the arising and passing, the impermanent nature, without clinging, non-attached appreciation of that which is experienced as pleasant, breaking our addictive, craving habits by letting go. Allowing the arising and passing of pleasure. Likewise with the unpleasant, painful, letting go of needing it to be different than it is, learning to be more tolerant, accepting, merciful, compassionate towards those annoying thoughts, emotions, sensations. Mindfulness teaches us to let go, breaking our addiction to our minds, breaking our addiction to pleasure. As we see the impermanent, unreliable, impersonal nature of things, mindfulness teaches us to be compassionate, to increase our ability to tolerate unpleasantness, and to develop a friendly relationship to discomfort, to pain, to annoyances, agitation. When you're ready, allowing your eyes to be open, coming back to movement, to eyes open, present time, awareness of seeing, of moving included. This being the first Thursday of the new year, 2025. Thought I'd reflect a little and ask you to reflect a little on your intentions, your recovery, your plans, aspirations for this year. Some of you are probably newer to recovery, coming in. Maybe you're still in your first year of abstinence recovery process. Some of you are multiple years, been doing this, probably some for decades. And the thing about mindfulness and time, and is that we start to understand that calendars and clocks and schedules are all kind of relative, assigning meaning to time. But I find that there's something very useful about assigning meaning to time, to anniversaries, to calendars, to birthdays, to anniversaries, to New Year's, knowing that ultimately it's not that meaningful. It's as meaningful as we assign it. Even the calendar that we live our lives by, this Christian calendar, 2025 after Jesus, as though time started with Jesus 2025 years ago. In the Buddhist calendar, it's 2,500, I think it's 56 or 57. The Buddhists got like 500, 600 years on the Christians. But even that, it's also kind of meaningless. So like, okay, so the Buddha was 2,500, 70 years ago or whatever it was. Anyways, none of it's very important to me. I feel like it's the meaning that we assign to it. And since we're in this world where we live by this calendar and there's the sort of seasonal changes, I think that actually the winter solstice was last week, right? So that's actually like there's something meaningful about like seasons changing and the days getting shorter and the days getting longer. It affects us directly. And but anyways, here we are. It's the first of January, New Year's. In in our recovery, we have our daily practices, daily meditation, all of the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path is to be done daily, all of the time. Present time awareness, all of the time. Formal meditation daily. Attending meetings, depending on where you're at. If you're new, maybe you go to meetings every day. Some people who I know people, I got one friend who's got like 30 years who still goes to a meeting every day. And that just became their recovery practice. And they're just like, I'm a meeting a day person. And they never change that. So some of you are of that kind of, daily meditation, daily meetings, or, maybe it's not daily, it's 3 or 4 or 5 a week or whatever it is. Everybody gets to find their own way with that. We're not super prescriptive about you have to go this many or that many. You find what works for you. But the Buddha's teachings is, every day it's mindfulness, it's kindness, it's compassion, it's forgiveness, it's generosity, it's practicing these principles daily, moment to moment. Even a day is too long. The 12-step world, they have that one day at a time, which is, it's a good advice. Like, stay sober today, stay in recovery today. It's good advice. But also, you can't do it all day. You can just do it in this one moment, right now. Don't drink, don't use, don't suffer right now. One moment at a time. There's that book, One Breath at a Time, Buddhism and the 12 Steps book, which, it's what a cool, yes, I'm going to stay sober right now while I breathe in and while I breathe out, one breath at a time. The day is too long. Too much shit's going to happen today. So, but looking at the new year, last night in my other organization, and again, so not last night, but Tuesday night, on New Year's Eve, on my my other organization, I did the 25th annual New Year's Eve intention setting ceremony, which for the last 25 years, every New Year's, I've gotten together with a group, with a Sangha, and done a meditation and reflected on the 5 precepts and the 3 refuges and set intentions. And so it's just become this sort of ceremony and ritual and in my life to look at my life at the new year, as many people do. People set New Year's resolutions and all of that. But I thought we had the opportunity tonight for us as our refuge community to talk about this a little bit and think about it and reflect on what are our intentions. What are our plans? I think it's quite useful to make a plan. Not that, our plans always work out, not that we always follow through 100% on our intentions but I think it's good as we enter a new year to say, hey, this is the amount of meetings I'd like to hit weekly. My plan this year is, to do my meditation, to hit this many meetings, there's 2 things in Refuge Recovery that are annual that we suggest in the book, that we, as part of the program, we say annually, at least once a year, every year, attend a meditation retreat. And this is, of course, a suggestion, and it's not everybody's able, but it's a good time at the beginning of the year to look at our year and say, where can I fit in a meditation retreat this year? Is there a weekend Refuge Recovery retreat or some other retreat that you can put in your schedule this year? If you're new, it's a weekend, or maybe it's 5 days, maybe it's 10 days if you've been around for a while. On page, I think, 74 and 75 of the book, it talks about effort and over the years, how then we commit to doing longer periods of retreat practice as part of the suggested path of Refuge Recovery. In addition to looking at our year and saying, where am I going to get my retreat in this year, and planning it. So, because, the reality is for most of us, if we don't plan it and schedule it and commit to it, it's not going to happen. And so, it's a good time, I think, in the new year to say, okay, next summer, I'm going to go to this retreat. I'm going to, so as I say that, like in March, there's a Refuge Recovery retreat in Oregon. In May, there's a Refuge Recovery retreat in Texas. In June, the conference is going to be in Massachusetts. In October, there's a Refuge Recovery retreat in Rhode Island. I think that's what's on the book. But, there's like 5 opportunities, for us now to say, like, oh, this is the refuge, retreat I'm going to do. Or maybe you have another retreat opportunity that you'll look into, but those are the ones that I'm going to offer this year. So in addition to thinking about that, it's also part of our program and suggested that annually we revisit the Refuge Recovery inventories. And so when we come into Refuge Recovery and we commit and we get sober and come into recovery and establish abstinence, the first and second noble truth inventories are part of the recovery process. And it's part of the foundation of recovery, is looking at the suffering that addiction created in our lives in the first truth inventory, looking at the causes and conditions that may have led to addiction, the craving and the fuel for addiction in the second truth inventory. And then once we do that, it's not, okay, now we're done forever. It is, okay, cool, you did that when you came in. Hopefully, most of you hopefully have done that. If you haven't, it's a good time to commit to it and say, I'm going to get that done in a timely manner. I'm going to get that done this year. But hopefully you've already done it and you've been here for a while. And then you look at it again and say, like, okay, let me revisit it. Not that you have to do the whole thing over, but you revisit it every year and say, oh, let me look at these questions. Is there new stuff that has come up? Is there, that saying, like, more will be revealed? And the reality is, like, when you're coming into recovery, you're probably not that clear And that first year, when you do your first inventory, you're probably kind of like, you look back at it years later, you're like, whoa, I hate to hope this doesn't sound too judgmental, but I think of myself, of my first year, a couple of years of recovery. I was like, whoa, I was really full of shit. I was really minimizing a whole bunch of stuff back then. And then after some years of recovery and meditation and more being revealed and getting more clarity, looking back at the past and being like, I have a different perspective on these questions. And not only that, but now I have a couple of years or several years or decades or whatever it is of recovery and of mindfulness and forgiveness and compassion practice to bring to looking at the inventory again, rather than it being one and done, an annual revisiting. So that's, as for the new year, I want to encourage and suggest and remind everybody that that's part of the Refuge Recovery program, is to look at our inventories annually, to try to go to retreats annually. And I feel like January, the kind of turn of the calendar year, is always a good time to make that intention, set that aspiration, and make some plans and set some time aside. When you come into Refuge, you learn all of the meditations. And we suggest in the beginning, it says, start with mindfulness of the breath like we did tonight. And then pretty quickly integrate forgiveness meditation, and then alternate mindfulness and forgiveness. And then if you go to the meetings, you learn all the meditations. You learn the whatever 5 or 6 mindfulness practices, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, broken down into, I think, 6 guided meditations. You learn the compassion meditation, you learn the appreciation meditation, the equanimity meditation, the forgiveness meditation, the loving kindness meditation. You also learn that there's eating meditation and walking meditation and the corpse meditation. And, so you end up with, all of these different techniques. Once you've been in recovery for a little while, or even, if you're new, the encouragement is stick with the breath. Keep ignoring your mind. Keep using that intervention of not obeying your thoughts, and coming back to the breath. Keep doing the forgiveness meditation in the beginning. But then at some point, you're like, some of you have been here for months or years. It can be useful to say, hey, I'm going to try to go a little deeper into, and you choose a practice. You say compassion. And I'm gonna spend 90 days or maybe the whole year. 2025 is going to be the compassion year. And I'm going to do at least 15 minutes of compassion every day all year until I learn to not be such a jerk to myself and others. Or whatever, or maybe it's appreciation. Maybe it's like, oh, I want to focus in. I did compassion last year. This year, I'm going to focus on appreciation. This year, I'm going to focus on, and I hope it makes sense. What I'm saying is that I just feel like it's useful because we have to be a little self-guided in recovery. You get all the tools. You got your toolbox. You have your 27 meditations, whatever it is. And then you got to choose. You look at it and you kind of say like, oh, mindfulness feels pretty solid. Forgiveness, I'm doing consistently. Oh, I sort of ignore the equanimity, or I'm not very good at the appreciation, the gratitude stuff. Let me focus, so you self-prescribe your intention. You say, oh, this year I'm going to focus a little bit, deep dive into appreciation, deep dive into, the corpse meditation, like what a interesting, there's a practice called a year to live that some people do that my father created, of like spending a whole year looking at death, doing corpse meditations and just turning towards the truth of impermanence and death and the preciousness of life and the opportunity that we have here for healing and recovering and awakening. And so I'm throwing a lot of stuff out there because we have a lot of options. And they're all important. And the process of recovery that we're in with the Eightfold Path meditation is mindfulness and concentration, and that mindfulness and concentration is so many different techniques, different aspects of mindfulness, different aspects of concentration. And then likewise, in the annual reflection, and we can look at the Eightfold Path and say, okay, how am I doing? How am I doing on this Eightfold Path? You kind of give yourself not a judgment, but a little inventory, a little kind of like just looking at it and being like, okay, well, I feel like I'm coming to understand karma a little bit better. I've been looking at cause and effect and karma in the first factor. Intention, second factor, like have I been intentionally being kind and generous and nonviolent, and we look at that. How's my communication? Kind of looking at these 8 spokes, and then with the question of like, where's the weak link? Which of the 8 folds, 8 factors of the Eightfold Path of Refuge Recovery is not the strongest? Probably most of you are familiar. The image of the 8 aspects of the Eightfold Path are spokes on a wheel. It's a wheel, the Dharma wheel, and it has 8 spokes. And so then we look at that wheel and say, oh, which factor, are they equally strong? Am I understanding and intention and communication and action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration? Am I balanced? Or am I doing a lot of meditation and I'm not being very honest and ethical and careful with my speech? Doing a lot of meditation, but creating a lot of conflict for myself in my relationships, or not creating very much conflict in my relationships, being of service a lot, mentoring 27 people, but not really meditating. And looking at all of it and then self-correcting. And maybe this is something that you have a conversation with your mentor about, or friends, but then kind of setting that aspiration, saying, I want to get as free as possible. I want to recover as, sincerely as possible. And I have all of these tools. Am I using them? And which ones could use a little bit more work, with the humility of like, yeah, I'm over here 36, coming up on 37 years into this recovery process. And every year I look at my life, regularly, but on the New Year's, look at my life and say like, oh yeah, I've been slacking a little bit over here. This could be tightened up. That could be tightened up. And it's just the ongoing process of this wheel, this eight spoked wheel. So how many meetings are you going to go to this weekly this year? Think about this for a moment. What's the right number of meetings to go to? And I think it's useful to think about this and to just set it and do it. Rather than like, I go to meetings when I feel like it and I don't go when I don't feel like it. Just kind of assess, be like, 4 or 5 a week, like that's good for me. And then go to 4 or 5 a week, even when you don't feel like going. Like, think about that, setting that for this whole year. And for some of you, it's like, I'm going to go every day. I go to that morning meeting. I go every day. It's part of my schedule. Or I go to evening meetings every day. It's part of my schedule. But I feel like it's a good idea to consider doing this for yourself at the new year, and then just following through all year. Is there a practice that you feel like you could focus on a bit more? Maybe you've been just doing the breath meditation for a while now. More second foundation this year, or one of the heart practices. The inventory. Do you have a mentor to go through that with, or a friend to go through that with? Put that in the schedule. I'll look at the inventory again early this year rather than putting it off. As I say that, I feel like I should probably offer like an annual January inventory retreat where like we can all just kind of everybody that it fits for, we could get together in January and do some sort of inventory retreat time together so that we get it done. Let's get together for the weekend and or a few days and like look at the inventory together as a community. So those are some of my thoughts about the new year. Happy New Year, whatever that means. Um, Welcome to Refuge Recovery. These are some of my thoughts and encouragements and reflections tonight for the new year. And open it up for questions, comments, anybody that wants to kind of publicly commit to some things that came up for them. You're welcome to do that here. We've got about 15 minutes left of this time together. So just raise your hand and jump in. Dave, go ahead.
Um, well, thanks first off, Noah, for the blueprint of how to recover. I have 3 years and 2 days.
Woo woo!
That's crazy to even think of.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Um, and I did the year to live once, and it was really the best year I ever had. I don't know how I could make it more epic. And I'm getting ready to do the year to live again. Do you have any advice of what to do differently the second time around?
I don't think so. I mean, I probably would have to explore it with you a little bit to give advice. But like everything this, when you do, you see it through different eyes when you do it again. Just like you've been on a bunch of retreats now, Dave, and it's like, it's different each time you approach it differently. You're a different person a year later or 2 years later, because of, what you've experienced and learned. And your live's going to be different for you in your third year of recovery than it was in your first or second. So I don't have advice other than, just that sincere commitment to it and exploration of it.
And then real quick, I have another another thought. So I'm making some hardcore decisions right now about, some things. And I'm able to slow down the monkey mind about those decisions during the meditation. But then the second the bell goes off and the meditation's over, the mind just starts going fucking full balls to the wall again. Um, any thoughts there?
Well, kind of smart ass Lee, I want to say, like, well, just never stop meditating. But that's not really the right answer. um, I feel like some of it is just like, of course, the thinking mind. We have to make, like our mind thinks and it plans and it remembers and it judges and it fears and it worries. That's just what the human mind does. And mindfulness on the cushion, I wonder if on the cushion you're doing a bit of a concentration practice that is allowing you to ignore that. And so maybe on the cushion, if you did a little bit more third foundation of observation of how thoughts arise and pass, that when the bell rings and you open your eyes, you'll have a little bit more familiarity of like, these are just impermanent thoughts arising and passing, arising and passing, arising and passing. I think that it's that relationship to our mind that has to change, that does change with meditation over the years. But if we stick too narrowly in the first foundation of mindfulness of the breath, ignoring the mind, if we do that for too long, then we only get relief while we're on the cushion ignoring our mind. That's why that's why the Buddha said that's a good initial intervention. Learn to ignore your mind is important, but ultimately change your relationship to your mind. Don't be so identified with it. Don't, and over the years of practice, you could develop more discernment of like, these are wise thoughts, these are not so wise thoughts. This is wholesome, this is unwholesome. This is love, this is fear. This is kindness, this is judgment. And you start to be able to characterize what thoughts are trustworthy and what thoughts are not trustworthy. In the Buddha's teaching, he says something like, mindfulness will lead to this discernment. And then when the wholesome thoughts arise, he says, cherish those, trust those, wisdom arising in your mind. He said, but when the unwholesome thoughts arise, the negative, the judgmental, the fear-based thoughts, abandon them. And he goes on in that teaching to say, it's possible to abandon identification with that negative mind tendency. He said, if it wasn't possible to do it, I wouldn't encourage you to do it. It is possible with long-term meditative training. And so there's that humility. Dave's asking the question, he's 3 years in. Some of you are 30 days in. Some of you are 30 years in. Over the years of our practice, we get a little bit more ability to not take our thoughts so personally, not be so identified with them, and have that discernment of what thoughts are trustworthy and what thoughts are not trustworthy. It's also the role of the mentor and the sangha of, like often we need to check our thinking with someone else, because we can really like talk ourselves into some bullshit sometimes. So that, the friends, the Sangha members, the mentors, be like, hey, I'm thinking this, does this make sense? And they'll be like, no, you're way off base. Or they'll be like, oh yeah, no, that totally sounds like wisdom. For that kind of wholesome and unwholesome, wise and unwise, it's the role of the second factor of the Eightfold Path. What is the intention? Is this intention selfish, self-serving, fear-based, wanting to cause harm to another? Or is this an intention based in loving kindness, based in generosity, based in wisdom? Is this a wholesome intention, these thoughts? Is it coming from a wise place, or is it coming from more anger and fear? So I think more third foundation of mindfulness will shift that for you. And then some of it is like, you just have to tolerate it. The mind thinks a lot and it worries and it fucking judges and does all that stuff. It's just what the mind does. We don't get much freedom from that in the beginning, even in, 3 years in. Still, as you said, balls to the wall. I got shit to think about. I got shit to worry about. So, what else? Anybody else have a thought, a question, a clarification, something they're working on in their recovery, or a New Year's intention they want to share, talk about, state? Debbie, go ahead.
How can people not have questions? I am sitting here saying I'm going to let somebody else ask a question. But okay, guys, I'll do it. So I walk into a meeting. I'm a very adverse person. I can't help it. What do I do to discern those aversive thoughts? And I'm 6 years in. So I walk in and still my first thought is, who the hell wears a fedora to meetings? This is like my first thought is like judgment, judgment, judgment all over the room. My second thought is also loving kindness, but I wish I could skip those first abrasive thoughts. They're like sandpaper on my little skin.
Yeah. Well, a few things. One is like that awareness that you have of like, oh, this tendency of my mind to be critical or judgmental, what you called abrasive, is unpleasant, right? So bringing the second foundation of mindfulness to your mind personality tendency and being like, oh, it's so unpleasant that my mind judges like this. And then that unpleasantness that, it's like you said, sandpaper, it's hurting you. Then the antidote, the wise response is, I need to have compassion for how unpleasant it is for me to live with my critical mind. Does that make sense, Debbie?
Completely. Do I use it like a note?
Yeah.
Like, like walk in and be like, it can say like unpleasant.
Yeah. Oh, I walk in and my mind judges and it's unpleasant. Name it.
Perfect.
Second foundation. Now, here's the other thing. I don't think I put this in the Refuge book because I'm not sure I wasn't sure how to put it in there, or maybe I did. I don't know. I don't think it's in there. But the Buddha talked about that we have personality types.
Adverse.
Yeah. That, some of us just have this conditioned mind personality type that is just aversive. And that's the initial thing that it does. And that it's not your fault. It's just, you got to live with it though. It's just what our minds do. And some people have the other side of it where they don't have the aversive, they have the greedy personality types, and they walk into the room and they're like, I want a fedora too. That's an awesome fedora, or whatever it is. And all of us have that type of, some habit of mind that is playing itself out all by itself. It's our personality. It's our personality types.
Well, how
Part of
nice.
the
So
practice.
my personality type is unpleasant. That's wonderful.
Well, here's the flip side. I don't know if you've heard this. You probably have. The flip side to an aversive personality type is discerning wisdom. Is that most of the time what you're judging is like, yeah, that is a stupid hat. Or would not, I mean, the hat's not a good example, but that often what we're aversive to is suffering. And that actually that aversive tendency can help us. Aversion to suffering, to unpleasantness, can help us meditate more deeply and get more free and develop more discerning wisdom. Like the fashion thing's not a good example, but the kind of aversion to the greed in this world and the hatred in this world and the political ignorance and corruption in this world, and that sort of aversion is like, it's unpleasant. It is suffering for us to be in that judgment, but also you're not wrong. And that will inspire you to get more spiritually free and see there is no refuge in the material, political, social world. There's an internal refuge. I have to get free in here because the world is a mess.
Well
And,
said. I
yeah,
will be at a year to live also, so I will see your friend there.
yeah,
And thanks to your dad.
yeah. Thanks, Debbie. Good to see you. All right, I got time for one more. Anybody else got a thought? Go for it, Michelle.
I mean, I know you said something about it on Tuesday. This is more of a nag and thought, but where are you with the second edition?
It's basically done. She's asking about the second edition to the Refuge Recovery, the edit that I've been working on for like 2.5, 3 years, however long it's been. The writing is basically done. It just needs to be formatted, and then the stories need to be edited. And so I just, Sebastian and I have been talking about putting some time aside, and I'm also having a hard time with the editing. It's all done in this Adobe Acrobat software that I'm not very good at. And Sebastian's actually good at it. So I'm hoping that he'll help me do that sort of final formatting, implementing, and then we got to send it to the publisher and they do their thing. So I don't know, but it's basically there. I probably just need a few days of like sitting down and plugging it in.
I have faith in you.
I wouldn't. Let's see. Rishi in the comments was asking about the Massachusetts conference dates, cost, and such. I can give you the dates. I think if I had my phone in front of me, I could give you the dates. I believe it's June 5th through 8th. Is that a Thursday through Sunday? June 5th through 8th. Anybody looking? It's that first weekend in June this year, and it's in Cape Cod. And I think Sebastian, today we were talking about it, and he said he'll get it posted next week.
Yeah, I'm
So-
working on it next week. First day is going to be Thursday, June 5th, and the last day is going to be Sunday, June 8th.
But we'll get that posted next week, and we keep it, whatever they charge us, we pass on the charge to you. We, just increase it a tiny bit for some expenses for us, but we keep it as cheap as we can. I think it should be. Do you remember the prices, Sebastian?
No, but I have it in front of me, so I could read it off there. Let's see. The dorm style rooms, which occupy 3 to 5 people, is going to be $600. If you wanted to save or register for a double occupancy room, that's $850. If you are planning on commuting, meaning that you are not going to be staying on site, it would be $200, which covers you for all the dates. And if you wanted to just attend Friday as a commuter, you could pay $108 for that. Or if you only wanted to attend Saturday as a commuter, it would be $800. $108 for that.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So
I'm
about,
I'm in New Jersey, so I'm really looking forward to this.
yeah, June 5th through 8th. And it's about $200 a night, because that's what the retreat center charges us for room and board at the place, close to that. And then we pass that cost on to you. I'll try to raise some scholarship money if we have any generous donors that want to help some people that can't afford it. We do want it to be open and accessible to everybody, even people who can't afford it. So I'll try to raise some scholarship money for that too.
Thank you, Noah. Thank you, everyone.
I've seen a couple other messages about retreats. All of the retreats are on the refugerecovery.org website. Oregon is in March. Come check that out. It's open for registration, and that's the next one. A couple months away. There's a weekend retreat in Oregon. Good to see everybody. May any goodness that comes from our practice be shared in all directions with all suffering beings in existence. May each one of us have a successful recovery, and may our life's energy benefit all beings everywhere.